I'm finally back. I'm finally bringing the semifinals. Now, this thing is super old. This is from 2021. It was the Legacy 1K that they were holding at Haven Games. And I recorded some of my actually, I guess I recorded all the matches in the series I was calling Magic Live at the time. I do plan on bringing this back. So if you are behind, be sure to check out the links in the descriptions for the Swiss rounds and the other rounds and the deck list, deck tech, all that stuff. But here on my right, I am playing Blue-White Miracles in Legacy. And on my left, it is Blue-Red Delver. Now, at the time this was recorded, because I'm super behind, Ragavan was legal. But now, Ragavan is Ragavan. So, you keep that in mind when you're watching this. Not a whole lot has changed. Most of the main cards are still seeing play were around at the time, like the Modern Horizons 2 and Expressive Iteration. All those are there. At the recording of this video, we have Streets of New Capena and Kamigawa. So there are a few changes that could affect the outcome of the deck lists. My deck list hasn't really changed at all, actually, and I don't think Blue-Red has, other than the banning of Ragavan. So overall, Legacy is not that much different. Like the Blue-Red Delver deck still seeing a lot of play, so keep that in mind. It's been so long, even though I know the general outcome of the games in the tournament, I don't remember a lot of the details of the game, so I'm going to be mostly seeing this for the first time. It's almost as if it's a live commentary. But turn 1 Ponder for Miracles is usually fine. There used to be a lot of debate on whether turn 1 Ponder in general is good if you're not playing a combo deck, because you don't really know what you're digging for, but I don't know if that's always the case. You want to use your mana if you can. If you don't have a Spell Pierce or something, it's important to do that. And you want to make sure you're hitting your land drops and that you have a diverse set of answers in Game 1. Oh, and another thing to keep in mind, there was an issue with the recording on this particular video. So this is actually Game 2, and the Delver deck did manage to win Game 1. Overall, I like the Delver matchup, but Game 1's probably the hardest. So Force of Will fought over something there. It looks like it was a Daze. Force of Will fought over Ragavan, which was Daze. So Daze is obviously really good. One of the things that makes Daze good, especially in the Delver decks, is it plays Wasteland, so it's taxing your mana. But guess which deck is good against Wasteland? So another thing I like to note is Delver decks have kind of been moving away from Stifle. That's another way of attacking the mana and making Daze even better. Stifle would be good against my Miracles deck because it does rely pretty heavily on the fetches. But not really doing that. I mean, it's too many good cards in general. Sometimes Stifle's just bad, but personally I like it, but I don't blame it. So Ragavan hits a Teferi, which is not good. I don't want to see my opponent casting Teferi here. But if he bricks on a land, which it looks like he does, I don't have to face down my... If he resolves Teferi there, I probably just lose this game. And being down a game in the semifinals, that is not what I want to see. But fetching a basic, shocker. Making sure we have life totals correct, it looks like I would be at 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm at 16 minus another 2, I believe. Yeah, we're counting up, make sure the life totals are correct. It says I'm at, oh yeah, I pay another life, I am at 15. So pay life from Force of Will at 15. In a turn Brainstorm, it's not something you see all that much in Legacy. Some people are really critical of it because you don't just use it as an instant when you're Brainstorm locked. But you'll see it a little more in a Miracles deck, because you set up a Miracle, or using your mana to make sure you have the right combination of cards. You'll see it a little more often when there's a fetch to crack. The order there, that was not the case, but I think I already knew some of the order of my cards because I have cast another Brainstorm and a Ponder, so for the most part I was filtering. But Island Plains is almost always the first 3 lands you see in this. So throwing out a Source of Plowshares, I will trade 1-for-1 with Delver any day of the week. They're overall threat light, and that's just something I want to do. I did notice a card in my hand there. I think it was Court of Grace. Near and dear to my heart. Is it an objectively really powerful card? I guess not. In Constructed, it's a 4-mana enchantment that doesn't immediately do something, I guess. But other than draw me a card, I mean, it comes into play, makes me the Monarch, I draw a card on my end step. So, like, in that sense, it does. But it gives my opponents an opportunity to become the Monarch. So slamming it on this exact board state, it's not, like, amazing because there's a Delver there, so I'll give my opponent cards. But if I have nothing better to do, I only have a few cards in my hand, and I can start generating creatures. I was about to say it's not really a fight over cards, but it kind of is, I suppose. So giving my opponents more cards. Oh, okay. Elspeth, totally wrong here. Elspeth is exactly what I want to see. It can stabilize my life total if needed, although my life total is not that low. It's a huge stream of blockers. The worst thing that my opponent could have here against me, for myself, is Force of Negation. Don't want to see that, because even if it's countered or dies, it just keeps coming back. Like I've said in other videos, in other contexts, it's like the white Euro. It's not as powerful as Euro, obviously, but it functions that way. Now, if this Delver flips and attacks my Planeswalker, that's like gaining 3 more life. And the Planeswalker itself can gain 5 life with, I think, -3. So, overall, not bad. So, it looks like he's just going to cast Brainstorm, I believe, to flip the Delver. I believe this is the upkeep. I kind of lost track there for a sec, but if I can untap with this, like if he doesn't flip Delver here, which it looks like he's not going to. Well, I guess, I mean, if they're top card, if he's lucky. But if he doesn't flip Delver here, then he's not going to attack into some tokens. And I just don't think he can beat an Elspeth. Even if he plays, like, I guess the best card he could have. Oh, no, okay. So he's in step just trying to kill it. Okay. So this was not the upkeep. False alarm. Okay, I'm going to try and pay a little more attention because, you know, talking about past things can be distracting. Okay, so this looks like an upkeep Brainstorm, right? Is that a Brainstorm? It's one of them. I don't know if it's Brainstorm Ponder. I'm assuming it's Brainstorm. I didn't see if he drew his card. But the way he's stacking is, yeah, the way he's stacking his stuff. So reveals Expressive Iteration, very strong. It's going to make the fight over card advantage difficult. And not gaining that 5 life makes this overall play kind of difficult for me because I'm still at the same life total. My creatures can't block the Delver. So not the best position. But missing land drops, that is what I want to see. No Ragavan to create treasures. Overall, pretty good. Source Plowshares is not what he wants to see. It's a very efficient, just 1-for-1 this creature. So here, if he forces that, I'm good with this. That's a 2-for-1. If he dazes it, I can pay for it easily. So not a lot of options here. So he does decide to go with Force of Will. That's kind of a win-win. There is going to be a point where that's not good for me because my life total is getting too low. But overall, I mean, that's fine. Oh, another one. So that's 3 Source to Plowshares this game. I mean, turns out Legacy, it's a good card. He pitches the Expressive Iteration, so not only does he go down a 2-for-1 there, but he removes one of his card advantage engines. I'm totally okay with these things. And I decide to attack for 1. I leave 1 back, I'm assuming, for a dashed Ragavan. I don't want to get got. Another interesting thing about the Delver matchup, I do generally like it. I don't know if I'd say it's good, because Delver doesn't really have any bad matchups, but I do like the matchup, especially after sideboard. But the difficult thing about sideboarding is all of the cards are good. There's actually no like straight up bad cards, but there's also a lot of good sideboard cards. In general, I kind of like all of the white cards, like the white fair cards, like Elspeth, Court of Grace, Palace Jailer. I also like Blue Elemental and Hydroblast. I like Flusterstorm. So these are all good cards. Flusterstorm, although, is all right. Okay, it is. I do have Court of Grace in my hand. I guess I'm not willing to throw it into a daze, so I just don't. Ooh, back to basics. Oh, all these cards are also good. Was a Blue Blast, back to basics. Maybe it's a Hydroblast on it. It's one of the blasts. But if I throw back to basics into daze, that's kind of bad. Ugh. Yeah. The daze was so obvious there. So that might have been a bad play. I probably should have just kept the Blue Blast and just kill the Ragavan, but I guess I had blockers, so I basically win if this resolves. I still think that might have been a bad play. What would have been nice is to find a land in that Brainstorm, so like land, back to basics, Blue Blast. I don't know if he could have beat that. You know, I do say one of the downsides, I don't know if Miracles has any bad matchups either, but it doesn't have any auto wins. The closest thing to an automatic win is resolving a back to basics against certain matchups with certain board states. That's pretty close to auto win sometimes. Okay, still got Court of Grace, but he's already cast a couple of dazes, so I could just jam. Can he beat Court of Grace? Enchantments are a weak point for resolved enchantments, I should say, are a weak point for blue-red Delvers. So if that resolves, going to start making some tokens, drawing some cards. I believe the die is supposed to represent the monarch, because I don't have a crown, unfortunately, and you can't see my head. What's going on here? Instep, something for 2 mana. Oh, okay, so that actually could have been a way to answer it. Okay, so I draw a card on my instep for being the monarch. He's killing that. Okay, so he wants to be the monarch. Fair enough. So now I don't make 4/4s. Trying to keep everything out of the glare for you guys. One of the reasons I chose to sit on this side. So now he becomes the monarch. He hits my single copy of Mystic Sanctuary, which is probably fine in general. And then a Delver of Secrets. Okay, so my opponent is running low on cards, which is annoying because he's the monarch. I hope I don't miss any of my triggers here, because I am bad at this game, so that does happen. I believe I have missed triggers at some point in this tournament, if not this game. Okay, what did I draw here? So I've been missing my land drops like for a while, but that also means I'm like all spells. Ooh, Force of Will. So if I have another blue card back to base, I can't draw all of them though because it's not a Brainstorm. So I think I'm just confident enough to just jam. Oh, I do have a land. Okay, so I can play around Days, even though Days is mostly. Yeah, there you go. Play around Days. So do I leave up Island or Plains? I think I leave up Plains. Nope. Okay, I don't. Oh, yes, it worked out. So that was the stacked Hydroblast to his Pyroblast. Oh. See, even though Pyroblast is better in Legacy, it loses to Hydroblast. I love it. So with this result, he has no mana, but he does flip Delver. I'm getting a little low on my life. It's going to be hard to become the Monarch again, and he's going to keep drawing cards. So, and he has a treasure. So he's not like, he doesn't just lose. But the back to basics should slow him down enough to help me. I don't necessarily win the game, but it'll at least help. The good news is I can chump with this token, but he's still going to get damage in. So the question of which one I block, probably Ragavan, which means okay, so he does attack the Ragavan. I kind of like that attack there. It's worth pushing damage, and it's like I have to block it. I can't let him make treasures. I missed my trigger there. I missed it. And I don't have Mystic Sanctuary, so that feels bad. But it is my 6th land, and we all know what that means. Elspeth comes back. But I was just too anxious to cast the Elspeth. That was on my mind, and I just wanted to draw, and I think that's what... I'm trying to remember. Because I think I knew the top card was a land from the Ponder, and so I was thinking about that too much and just missed the trigger. That's not good, by the way. That is very bad. So the question about... I think I gain life here because I can't block anyway. But the problem is if I don't make tokens, I can't attack in to become the Monarch again. But I can't afford to lose to Bolt. I would, if I was me now, I would gain the life, but I don't really remember what I do here. Oh, we've got a reader. Yes, that's the same Elspeth from earlier that you had to read again. And no one plays this card because it's generally considered bad. But okay, so he's going to Brainstorm in response with his treasure. Maybe try to find Days or Force of Will. So I'm pretty sure that's all they play. I don't know. Double decks don't play a lot of the Force Negation. I probably would play a couple, but I don't blame them for not. You can't afford to 2-for-1 yourself too much. It looks like it's going to resolve. So if I gain 5 and go to 11, that's a nice cushion. Yep. Okay, I'm glad I made the right play there because losing to Bolt would be bad. Yeah, no, you do not get to untap. Look at these. Look at these. Look at the expense of the mana bases on each side, and which one do you think is better right now? I'm telling you, this deck has game. How awkward is this Wasteland? So he draws at the end. He's still the Monarch. Oh, I remembered it. Token this time. I was pretty upset with myself for missing that trigger. So here's a cool thing. I can activate Elspeth twice because I can just activate, she dies, cast her again. And it's one of those interesting things is she has no plus abilities. And that seems bad, but maybe it's not because you can consistently activate her 2 times in a turn if you use the right sequence of abilities. Graveyard has plenty of cards. This is another reason why fetch lands are necessary among Brainstorm, Jace Brainstorm ability, Ponder. Like, you have to have fetches, and they're like a little pricey, but on the standard of Legacy deck costs, this deck is not expensive at all. It's the price of a modern deck, basically. So I went from being behind to being probably ahead, actually. So I made tokens, cast Elspeth again, gained 5 more life, back to 13. I've got an active Court of Grace and an active Elspeth. His lands aren't untapping. His Wasteland doesn't cast anything, and it doesn't do anything to my mana base. So I feel good about this game. And when I get an attack in, I become the Monarch and I start drawing more cards. And if I untap as the Monarch and make 4/4s with this Court of Grace, I don't think Delver can beat that. So obviously I'm going to jump here. There's just no reason not to jump. Another Wasteland, awkward. See, there's more reasons to play basic lands in the Back to Basics deck than just your Back to Basics. The deck doesn't really utilize dual land mana base much. There's very few situations where that's necessary. Although 1 Tundra is probably fine, and maybe even better. But Tundra here is just going to get Wastelanded, so I wouldn't even choose to fetch for it, but if I had it from other contexts, it either wouldn't be untapping and or get Wastelanded. So I am now the Monarch. I have 2 cards. My opponent's life total is like, it's being, no, can't untap. Yep, there you go. You do have to remind sometimes, it's easy to miss. Like, you don't think about it because it's just not something that normally happens in a game of Magic. Usually you only see something like that happening in games of Commander when someone has like a Winter Orb out or something. So I managed to take game number 2, all of the permanents coming in clutch there, 2 of which were sideboard cards, 1 of which is the namesake of the deck. So I'm going to do my best here to skip to game 3 hopefully without getting too far ahead of myself. Okay, and I'm going to be on the draw, of course, and that makes a very large difference in this kind of game because of cards like Daze. My best bet in this game is to have the right sequence of answers and maybe go up on cards in an interaction involving a Terminus. So maybe he has like 2 creatures in play. I Terminus, he tries to counter, I counter back. Usually it'd be worst case scenario if he has Daze and doesn't go down on cards. So if he goes, it would have to be turn 2 since I don't play Tundra. I would turn 3 rather. There had to be some sequence where I'm not untapping with 1 land into Terminus because I set it up with blue cards. So that's one of the things that Tundra's good at. So I'm forced to not do that, which ends up being good in Daze situations because I'll have that extra mana. And clock isn't quite fast enough to where I'm pressured and I'm going to die on turn 3 or anything like that. So looks like I'm keeping 7. And I'll almost always keep a hand that has like interaction, dig, land. And my opponent keeps 6, which is not too bad. Yeah, he's keeping 6. A lot of these Delver decks, obviously, they don't really play any basics, but they'll even play like a single Steam Vents because they need that 5th Volcanic Island. But turn 1 Delver is about the best he can do here. Delver / Dragon's Rage Channel are usually the stronger ones. I saw Teferi, a miracle card. I think it was Entreat, but I don't think those are the cards I need. I might just want to find land drops, source Plowshares, stuff like that. I'm trying to remember what I cut in this matchup. I think I cut Force of Negation because it goes down a card and it doesn't counter the important cards. Like I usually want to just anything that kills a creature or interacts with creatures. I probably cut Portent even though I keep in the Terminus because they don't really go wide. And Terminus is, even though it's good, I'm going to keep it in. I'm not just trying to set up Terminus like speed Terminus. Oh, he does play a basic island. Interesting. So we have Ponder here. I guess you can afford to play 1 basic island. Then again, if he has a couple basics in his deck, he's clearly going to know to go for them here. I don't believe I revealed a Back to Basics game 1. But 1 basic island will definitely not be enough to beat Back to Basics. So not flipping Delver here is really good for me. I set up, I shouldn't say I set up anything because I shuffled, but I helped my draws with Ponder. A main phase Brainstorm here is interesting. I'm probably just digging for source Plowshares, but I think that's a Terminus, which is not terrible. I can afford to take another hit, preferably. This is one of the situations where dashing is really strong because, in general, it avoids sorcery speed removal. And it's hasty, of course, but even though it takes extra mana. Getting rid of the either excess lands, especially that Mystic Sanctuary, out of my hand is good. Replace it with smoother cards. Maybe I changed my mind there. Oh yeah, I think I want to set my Terminus up, of course. So I do have more land drops. I have Force of Will. I'm probably going to say Force of Will to defend against a spell I want to resolve, like a big spell, or to make sure... I'll probably trade Force of Will with almost any creature if possible. So he has Force of Will, Lightning Bolts, Expressive Iteration, I think, and a land and maybe one other card. I'm not really sure. But he did flip the Delver. He has Bolts, so the pressure is on. Okay, Expressive Iteration. There are situations where I'd counter this. I'm not sure if this is one of them. I'm thinking about it. I clearly am. But this is the kind of stuff that makes Legacy fun, in my opinion. So I do decide to try to force that because that represents card advantage. So I force Brainstorm, and he just lets that resolve. He decides his force is better to fight over something more tempo-oriented, like pushing through damage or resolving a creature. So here what happens is I'm revealing Terminus off of the trigger, and while the trigger's on the stack, I fetch to get planes. So you can do that. So he has Bolt. Oh, he didn't have another blue card. Okay, that was his only other blue card. So he had Land, Bolt, Force, and Expressive. Put Expressive on stack and could not defend it with Force. So that ended up working out really well for me. So we're counting, make sure so life totals are correct. He poked me for 1, hit me for 3, and I fetched once. So, oh, and Force of Will. So that's 6. So looks like the life totals are correct. Yeah, nothing else to do here. Another thing is I also like all the Planeswalkers in this matchup. I don't know if I actually ended up cutting Narset, but I mean, he has Ponder and Brainstorm, so I like Narset a lot. Narset takes hits too, but I probably cut, even though Spell Pierce trades, it's just worse than Hydroblast and Pyroblast a lot of the time. It doesn't kill Delver, but it kills Dragon's Rage Channeler, and it kills... I'm not 100% my opponent is on Dragon's Rage Channeler, because I think they were playing Ragavan, but DRC is really good. Even though Council's Judgment does answer a creature, okay, so he does have a couple basics, and he's attentive. That's good. That's very good attention to detail. Yeah, I don't know. Like, every card's good, so you just have to kind of hedge on what to cut. I probably cut Predict, just a little slow, clunky. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at the list here, and I'm not sure what else I ended up cutting, but I know what I brought in. I definitely brought in Palace Jailer, Court of Grays, Elspeth, Blue Elemental Blast, and Hydroblast. I don't know if I brought in Flusterstorm. I would probably want Flusterstorm over Spell Pierce if I had to choose between the two, but I probably don't want either of them. They don't interact with creatures. It is good to Spell Pierce a Force of Will or something, but I can just out-muscle it a lot of the time, especially with cards like Elspeth. So main phase Brainstorm, I believe. Probably trying to make sure I'm hitting a land drop. So like land Teferi here would be really strong, especially if it resolves. If I bounce Delver, he untaps and bolts it, which is an okay exchange, I think. Back to Basics actually not looking so hot here, especially if he has second island in his deck. Then Back to Basics is just, I would just not be on that game plan. All right, Delver does flip. A Swords to Plowshares here would be nice, but I probably would have fired it off my turn because he would have had one less card in his hand. Yeah, you'll notice a lot of sorcery speed Swords to Plowshares in Legacy, or just removal in general, because I mean it's one less card your opponent has to work with. Okay, looks like I set up a Terminus off of some. Why am I drawing this card? Oh, he attacked and passed. He just didn't do anything. So Terminus is a 1-for-1 trade, and it has been almost this entire match, but I'm only paying 1 mana for it. So it's almost like I'm Swords to Plowshares, and he doesn't even gain the life. So I'm okay with this. I have 4 mana. I could jam a Jace, but that would just probably eat a Daze. He probably kept Daze in his deck, right? It was pretty good that last game. Having some sleeve issues. Yeah, double sleeving can be difficult, especially with Dragon Shields or something that fits really tight. Because of that, I'm kind of moving to side loaders myself, but I know it doesn't create a perfect seal, but it's still a seal, and more importantly, it just protects the borders of your cards, or edges, whatever they're called. I think borders are technically the surface. He decides to fetch before his draw step, so he increases the chance of drawing another Delver because he just needs threats, because he is not the control deck in this matchup. I'm wondering what I have to just pass with 4 open mana. I definitely don't have any 3 mana Planeswalker. I think that would be very good to play in a situation like that. 1 island short of using Mystic Sanctuary, but there's probably nothing I'm like super excited about to get with Mystic Sanctuary. Maybe Brainstorm. I would probably want to save it for one of the Terminus too. Ooh, an Instep Click. This is a decent play. I really like casting Vendilion Click when there's an Elspeth in play though. I'm sorry, when there's Narset. Then they don't even draw a card. So in response, he's either going to hide his best cards with Brainstorm, or he's going to do something. I don't know. He's really hesitant to tap his Volcanic Islands, and I don't blame him. He's actually playing very well around the cards I can represent. I like this pressure, though, because it forces him to use cards, and I'm okay with any outcome here. I'm okay with taking nothing and just having a creature and then him spinning a card on it. I'm okay taking his best card and him spinning a card on it. I'm okay hitting him for damage. It can be a blocker later. It's like all of these are good for me. Like if he's using his resources to deal with my Vendilion Click, I'm totally okay with this. My top decks are most of the time stronger than his. It's only when my life total gets really low that it becomes scary. Honestly, though, at this point, my best card is still probably like Elspeth. It's good against his counter spells and his removal spells. Okay, there is... is that another basic island? I think it is. So island, force, 2 red cards. Do I just let him keep him? Yeah, it's like, I mean, you just keep him. I mean, if you Brainstorm or something, I'm not going to worry about it. And if he spins one of his red cards on this, I'm good with this. No, I did that on his draw step. Okay, so we're not on my turn, I don't think, or on his end step. I think. I don't know. Got a little lost there. That's okay. So I did bring in Flusterstorm. Interesting. Not a fan, though. Ooh, I found the Elspeth. So strong. And I know he doesn't have an answer, because I didn't let it. He didn't get to draw a card. I think it was his instead, actually. But the sequence would have moved so fast. Draw step or instep, it wouldn't have looked any different on the camera, because nothing else happened on the turn. I decided not to gain the life, which is fair, because he has no threats. I'm not that low. I can't really be burnt out, and Price of Progress isn't good against me. Another reason to play basics. Whew. It's just so good. The thing I'm curious what I do here is, do I gain life to make 2 activations, or do I just attack for 6? I can do both. Well, I need a land. But if I have a land, I can do both. I can go gain life, attack for 6, or do I go wider? I don't know. I guess it depends a little on what I draw, and I know what was that other card in my hand. It was the Flusterstorm. Flusterstorm's not looking good here, though. I think that might have been a mistake to bring in. I'm curious what I cut. I really hope I didn't cut Narset, because Narset is very good. So Days Force of Will. It's getting close to hard casting Force of Will. Looks like it's another Brainstorm. And is that it? Just 3 cards? Those are 3 good cards, but there's an active Elspeth. Oh, and now here comes the Teferi. So it's kind of lose-lose, but this does mean I'm not getting 2 activations off of this Elspeth. That's a fair thing. 1, 2, 3. So Flusterstorm doesn't even defend it here. Yeah. I don't like Flusterstorm here. I think it's an okay card in general against Delver, but there's just better cards. It's not that... like, anything I'm cutting for, it's probably just better than the card itself in this deck. I definitely want this to resolve, but I don't think I have anything to defend. So I decide to just pump and get aggressive, which is fair, but it is a 3-turn clock, right? 6, 12, 18. Yes, it's a 3-turn clock at that rate. Yeah, he just has no threats. Like that one Delver being Terminus is really going miles for me here. Court of Grace, excellent card. If I untap as the Monarch, the game's over. I don't think you can beat that. Annoyingly, though, if he has a counterspell here, this stupid Flusterstorm just isn't going to help me. Unless he hardcasts Force of Will. I think that's the only way. So I decided to just do 2 activations. I wonder if... Let me think. So if I think he has a way to interact with this, I guess it's better for him to try to counter a second escaped Elspeth than my 1 Court of Grace. So I'm going to shortcut fetch for 2 lands here. I could get Mystic Sanctuary, but is that even worth it? I'm going to say no. I think I just get some more basics. That's just a land he can wasteland. Yeah, I like my choice. I was trying to think, I mean, I can guarantee like a spell that I want, like Brainstorm or Ponder, but I'm not at that point. I've got active spells I can cast. So he's casting Brainstorm because he wants to try to stop the second Elspeth activation of the turn. And I think my logic here when I was doing it is that it's better him spend that card on this escaped Elspeth that I can just do again instead of the Court of Grace, which I may need to use later. I don't know how good Delver is at answering wide threats, though. So, like, just 4 tokens is just annoying for Delver to deal with. But it doesn't look like he has anything. So I'm probably just going to hit him for 6 again. Nope, I gained 5. I guess it's like, I think to myself, okay, I'm ahead, so how do I lose? And being just like a chain of burn spells, because I think he had a boldness hand. And Dash Dragon, yeah. So I thought I was like, if I gain life, that really takes away options. Murktide Regent is a problem. How do I source Plowshares, I guess. Terminus, but then I lose my tokens. But I would take that trade, because I have an active Elspeth. So more and more of this Flusterstorm's looking pretty bad. Pretty bad. Court of Grace is looking good, but I don't have a way to block this Murktide Regent, so I'd really would rather him not be the Monarch. It looks like he has no cards in his hand either. He has 1 card in his hand. I think he has at least 1 card in his hand. So what do I do here? I could play a fetch to Terminus next turn. Now I'm actually really liking that I gain life because that Murktide is a big boy. I could attack and then make tokens and then gain more life. That could really make this Murktide slower. It looks like his last card is Hydroblast, and that does not answer and I think I know this, and that doesn't answer Elspeth. Like, I'm just like literally mono Elspeth right now. I haven't cast a different spell in a few turns. So I attack for 4. He blocks. One of them goes to 6. Or does he block? Feels probably really bad trading a Ragavan for a token, but you wouldn't attack from that same logic, so it's better to just absorb damage, I guess. But I can pretty easily cast this Elspeth again. I think it's only 5 cards. So escaping Elspeth is not that hard. If I'm the Delver player, I don't know what... I mean, you clearly block 1 of the tokens with the Murktide, and he just blocks 2 tokens. And he's like, I mean, his life total's getting low. He doesn't really have a way to gain life. So I can't block Murktide, but I can gain a bunch of life and make its hits effectively tiny. And if he attacks the Elspeth, which he's unlikely to do, that makes it even worse. So I have extra... So I leave a Brainstorm and a Brainstorm, a Ponder, and a Terminus in my graveyard, and I'm representing Mystic Sanctuary. I don't think he hit my Mystic. That was the other game, right? Yeah, so I should still have Mystic Sanctuary in my deck. All the way back up to 18. Whew. Elspeth, you are carrying this game. He just scoops it up, really. He just can't beat this. He draws another land. Alrighty, well, that was the semifinals. So I'm about to head into the finals. I will go ahead and shoot that immediately, so keep an eye out for that video coming up next. Thanks for watching.